Guys, this is Greg with Walnut Ridge Family RV Sales in Memphis, Indiana. Today we're going to do an orientation walkthrough on the Cougar 320 RDS. We'll start up here at your battery box and your battery disconnect and control. So your batteries are in here, and most of the newer 24s will have solar, but the battery that comes standard on them is a standard 12-volt deep cycle marine battery. So that battery will need to be maintained every 6 months or so, especially with solar. You'll want to take the cover off, pop the caps off, and check the water level inside the battery, which we have several videos on. And from there, make sure that it is full of distilled water, and it must be distilled water only. Inside this compartment, you'll have one switch up here that's going to be your battery disconnect. Essentially, this is going to kill the battery from powering anything inside the unit. And we have just a simple off and on. So if you're just going to go home, park the unit in the driveway, and it's not going to be used, you want to flip that off, because there's always little things inside campers that are hardwired to the battery, and they'll drain the battery down. And then if you have solar, the solar will charge it right back up, and it'll be a never-ending cycle, and that will burn through the batteries a lot faster than they used to. So make sure anytime it's not going to be used that you unplug or you disconnect your battery. Other than that, there's not a lot else you need to do inside this front storage or with the batteries themselves. So we'll move on around to the water compartment of the unit. So inside the front storage on the off door side is going to be you have a disconnect in here that's for the solar panel strictly. So if you have it on, it's going to, anytime there's sun out and it's got the correct angle, it's going to be charging the battery. But again, if you're just going to go home and park it, you don't want that to constantly be charging a battery when the unit's not going to be used, or in wintertime, things like that. You'll want to have the option to switch it off. Just make sure when you are going to use it that you'll want it on. That way the solar will charge up in between any cases that you're not plugged into the vehicle or your shore cord. Your battery will stay up as much as possible, providing the sun's out. The other part of the solar would be the charge controller here. This has an app that you'll download onto your phone, and it will tell you different things about solar, how much wattage it's taken in, just different things you need to know. There's a lot of people that don't even have used the app. They just kind of use the solar and let it go. But if you want to know more and deeper into it, you can download the app and control the solar from your phone. So the LCI auto level system is pretty simple to operate. You have a simple on and off button, and when you first turn it on, typically you'll get either a green light in the middle, or sometimes it'll be left rear, right rear. Some of these lights may be blinking. That's not a warning sign or anything like that. That just means that the left rear is the most far off level. So don't take that as it's an error or anything like that. When you first get to your campsite and you're ready to unhook your truck, you will simply lower your front jacks down until about 6 to 8 inches. Now these work on electric systems, so they have a secondary jack along with them. So you have the electric portion of the jack that will come down. I typically like to lower that 6 to 8 inches, and then I'll pull the handle and lower the manual part of the jack down until it touches the ground and I can get it locked in safely. That way you can continue holding the front button, which will raise up the camper until you get right at the point that you're ready to release the truck. And that gives the electric side room to move whenever you go into the auto level section, which would be next. After you have unhooked the unit and pulled your truck completely out from underneath it, I usually like to raise it up a few inches, and then you'll just hit your auto level button, and it's going to go through a process of dropping the rear jacks, dropping the fronts or raising the fronts to get wherever as close to level as possible. Now, the systems, especially on these units that sit a lot higher, you will need a set of blocks to put under your front and rear jacks, because there's a lot of areas in campgrounds that are uneven. So when you go to auto level, that it needs to raise it so high to get it level that the jack ends up running out of jack, and it'll throw an error at you. So a lot of times you need to put Lynx levelers or Anderson blocks, something down, so you have enough room for the jack to move up and down to get you automatically leveled. So it will go through this whole process here, and it takes about a minute or so. You always want to make sure that you don't have people inside the camper running around. Huge dogs that are in there running around can throw off the leveling system, and it'll cause it to throw an error. And once it's done, it'll pop up and say auto level success, and you're ready to go and camp. From there, you have our simple retract button. Once you hit retract, that is turning on a retract mode, and then you can hold front, and that will lower your front. If you turn retract back off, you hit front, you can lower it or raise it back up if you needed to. You can retract the rears from here. So you just hit retract, hold the rears. You cannot extend the rears from here. You would have to go into manual mode, which as soon as this is done here in 1 second, I'll show you. So it'll go through it. It's going to analyze every motion that it makes. So it raised the left rear just a hair, just enough. So it'll keep doing this for about a minute until auto level success will pop up. It'll verify the ground, and pretty much you're good from here. Now, once you're ready to hook back up, see, we ran out of stroke. So that's a good error to show on camera. This is what happens when the camper is too far. The back end specifically was too low, so it couldn't raise the back up enough to get it fully level, because I don't have any blocks and we're on a pretty slanted ground here. So it ran out of room in the jack, and now it's thrown an error at us saying it's out of stroke. Now, at one point, it said auto level success, so it got super close. So in reality, you could probably, you'll be fine the way it was. It's green, it's showing that it's level. A lot of RVs nowadays don't need to be as perfectly level as they used to be with absorption refrigerators. So we'll go through and show that these arrows, you can go in and they have different modes. You have auto retract all. I typically don't like to use that one. Auto retract rear. So when I'm done camping and I'm ready to hook back up to my truck, I can just go into here, hit that. It'll pull up the rear jacks, and then I can go back home and control my front or back wherever I need to go to get on the truck, hook up, and then we're ready to go. Inside the water compartment on this Cougar fifth wheel, you're going to have a few different things. At the top, you're going to have an external shower. So these will all come with just a black hose. It clips into here and then rotates and locks in. These do not have a sprayer port that comes with them, but it's the same as any household garden sprayer you can get. And you can use that for various things, cleaning off pets or whatever. At the top, you have a winterized port. So whenever that time of year comes and you want to winterize the unit, you have a couple different things you need to do. You'll get a hose that you can put into here, typically a 3/8 hose with the same garden hose fitting. Screw it in, put it in your jug of antifreeze. You'll want to make sure that your winterizing bypass is on, and that way it sucks from here instead of the city water connection of the fresh tank, and you'll turn it on and go through the process of winterizing. Down here's a city water connection, so this is where you're going to be if you have a full hookup at your campsite. You just hook a hose into here, turn it on, and you have an unlimited water supply. You'll want the winterized port off during the summer when you're not in winterized. And then below that, you have a tank flush. So we'll go to the black tank first. So you have black tank and gray tank, and then it'll have another tank, typically on the frame of the unit, another handle like this. And there's usually a sticker like this on the side of the unit. So you have gray tank, which is for your bathroom sink shower, and then the other gray tank that's on the frame is for your kitchen sink. The black tank is your toilet. So after you're done at the campsite and you're done dumping everything, you want to dump your black first, wait till it's completely done, push it in, then pull your gray, let that complete, and you can do both grays at the same time. That prevents backwashing in the pipe, and it also helps clean out the hose with a little bit cleaner water than what's in the black tank. And if you have time at the campsite, and this is something you really need to make sure that you do every once in a while, hook up a hose into here and turn it on, leave the valve open, and that's going to shoot water inside that tank and help clean it out. It'll help clean the sensors off, and it'll help keep the tank's overall freshness the best it can. So mix that with using chemicals, filling the tank up with water and dropping chemical pods into it regularly. You'll be able to keep the sensors reading as accurate as possible. You have another solar input here. Zamp sells a solar charger. It plugs in, and it's just kind of a mat that sets out on the ground that you could do if you needed to get a little bit of an extra charge to the battery. You have a key TV box here that has a blue cable coming in and hooked up to the satellite. So essentially, if you had, there's a roof-mounted satellite that you can buy that this will go up to the roof and connect to. So up on the roof, all you have to do is connect your satellite into the coax that's up there. Then this cable runs down and you can connect it into here. Or if you didn't want to run it on the roof and you wanted to run a satellite, you could just put it in the grass and run the coax cable and plug it into here. So this is essentially a blank cable. Most of the time you're not going to be using, especially if you don't have a satellite, you won't use it at all. The next one is for cable. So if you are at a campsite that has cable, you can hook into here and run a channel scan on the cable side and pick up whatever channels that you could get at that particular park. So that is the water compartment on this here Cougar, and we'll move on to the water heater next. All right, the Girard water heater is fairly simple to operate, and on the outside there's not a lot that you have to do. It's simply got a on and off switch that you want to shut it off whenever it's not in use or not in going to be used for the next setting it in the campground, or you're not going to be there. You'll want to shut it off. You don't have to shut it off in between usage when you're actually in there using it, but you don't want it to be on. That way, if somebody ever came in and kicked water on for some reason, it doesn't always fire and burn up all your LP. These are propane powered only. And on the outside, there's not a lot you have to do besides having that switch on. So when we get to the inside, I'll show you how the control panel works and a few things that you'll want to know about this specifically. We'll go ahead and move on to that now. Okay, so this is the water heater control panel, and it only has 4 buttons. You have an on and off, up and down for temperature selection, and then a Celsius, Fahrenheit, whichever you prefer. So when you first turn these on, now we're winterized now, so I can't actually fire it up and show you. But what it'll do is, it might actually, but I don't want it to turn on when there's antifreeze. So whenever there's a full water flow going, there will be 3 lights that can pop up right here. You have a fan light that'll come on first, saying that the fan on the unit kicked on. Then you'll have a shower head looking light that'll shine over here, saying that it's got air or water flow. Next, once the system lights, a little flame in the middle will pop up, and that means that it lit. And from there, usually with this system, you want to try to set the hot water first. Your hot water side, say you're in the shower or doing your dishes, whatever, set the hot water side first and then leave it alone. If it's too hot, you'll want to do your adjustments from the cold side, because if I have this fully on and I said it's too hot and I want to back it down, it's going to shut off the system for a split second, and then it'll take a second to fire back up, and then you're going to get a shot of cold water. And when you're in the shower, that can be a problem. So always turn hot on, leave it in one specific area, and then adjust from the cold side. So we will go ahead and wrap up the Girard water heater and move on to something else. All right, here on your RV, you're going to have a fresh tank fill. So up front in the water compartment, you had a city connection. So if you're at a full service campsite, you can hook up a hose there and you'll have an unlimited water supply. But if you're going boondocking or you want some water while you're traveling, you can fill this tank up here and let it fill up. It'll start shooting out here when it's full, and then you have a water pump switch on the control panel, which I'll show you in a second, that you can turn on, and it's the same thing as the other one. You just have a limited supply of water. So if you want to, when you're done using it, you'll want to drain it. That way the water doesn't get stagnant. That drain is always typically right below the units. You can see it's a white handle here. It just opens and closes, and that's going to be your drain for your fresh tank. So let's move on to the inside. Okay, so here we're going to talk about the in-command system, which is the heart of the Cougar fifth wheel. This is going to do all your slides, your climate control, your awning, and most of your lights. So when you first get into it, it may ask you for a passcode. It's always 4 zeros. And then when you get in, you're going to have a battery indicator at the bottom. Your water pump that we just talked about at the fresh tank section, you turn that on, and that's going to pump water from the tank. Interior lights will do a lot of the ceiling lights in the unit. And if you go into the light section, you have your awning lights, ceiling, bedroom, and most of them, like the bedroom, also has a control switch in the bedroom, so you don't have to come in here to turn your lights off in the bedroom. Your slide buttons are in here, so it'll have your bed, kitchen slide, dinette slide, and the awning are all in this one menu. And they're simple, in and out for each one, depending on which one you want to run out. Climate, usually when it turns on, it's going to default to front AC, even though this particular unit has one, but a lot don't. So even if it doesn't, you'll want to always usually have to go back or forward to rear AC, because it's typically the AC that a lot of them will have. From there, you can turn it on, off, to fan, cool. Heat will only work on the rear AC, so if it did have a front AC, you can only control the heat from the rear AC section. So when you turn it on, you have a fan mode. You can kick it on high, low. That won't run a compressor, but it'll just run some air. Cool, auto, low, high. I typically like to leave it in auto or high, especially on hot days, so it doesn't freeze up. Then the heat is gas only, even though it has a button there. You can't change it. And that will also want to be left on auto. If it's on fan or high or low, it will run the fan on the AC at the same time. Then you just control your temperatures above whatever it is inside, or below, depending on which you're running. Your vent fan, open and close. Some of these are on here, but they don't actually have that specific vent fan. Let's see, you have a schedule at the bottom. I typically tell people not to mess with this because it ends up causing issues with turning on and off, because it's not 100%. It doesn't show well, essentially, but you can set a schedule of when it turns on, when it turns off. I used to have my AC on throughout the day and all night, but I'd have the heat kick on about 5 a.m. so I could change how I wanted it to come on, when I wanted it to come on. So that just depends on how you're using it. The fan is in the ceiling up there. It kicked on medium. And then the vent will open up. Shut that off and go back. You have some other settings. Not a lot in here you can do. You can change your passcode, set it up. I would never mess with floor plan or any of the edits. And Your tank levels will show up here at the top, so they just automatically show. You don't have to click on them or anything. So once there's water in those tanks, it will read as it gets to certain levels. You'll notice up here it says battery heat. That's for the winter time. If you are going to be dry camping, if this specific model had lithium, you could turn this on so the lithium batteries stay warm enough so that they can accept the charge when it gets super cold, under 32 degrees. They typically don't run well, so you'll want to have the heat on if you are using it in the wintertime. This piece here people ask about, it's a thermostat for the AC, so nothing you have to mess with. And then these are light switches, various spots throughout the kitchen area. So let's move on down to the kitchen. I'll show you some of the appliances. So we'll talk about the refrigerator and the other appliances that are in the RV itself. These Furrion refrigerators have their touchscreen on the outside, and if you, sorry, it's in lock mode. Let me unhook it up. Hold the lock button for a few seconds, it will shut off. And now I can tap freezer or fridge and change the temperature of the whichever you want. You can change it to different functions, different settings, like if you want it to be super cold, and there's some other ones depending on how you like to use it. The owner's manual will kind of explain more of how those work. Other than that, it's a standard side-by-side fridge, nothing inside you really need to mess with. Over here we have your microwave, convection style ovens. You don't have to do anything. These are 110 powered. They are like any home microwave. So if you can operate one at home, you can operate this same style. The cooktop itself, these newer ones have these lights in them. So either when it's on or off, it'll have these blue lights. But what's nice is, you know, if the kid was over here and they accidentally turn the gas on, it'll illuminate red to let somebody know, hey, the gas is on. You should probably shut that off. But when you want to light, let's say the middle burner here, I'll turn it to the flame nozzle and I'll give it a few clicks until it lights. Same with the oven. Now, if we don't have our LP on, it may not light right away. And after the unit has set for a long time, maybe over the winter, and you're ready to fire it up again, it usually takes a few tries of getting the sparker to light before the gas reaches this point. And you can see I've got the gas turned off, so it died off there. When you go to light the oven, you have the same flame, but when you go to the flame, you want to push in and hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then you can start to run the igniter. And what will happen is in the bottom of the oven, which you're not going to be able to see, the very back, there'll be a little flame that'll pop up after it clicks and ignites. And then you keep the button held in for a few seconds, let off, and turn it to whatever temperature you'd like. And the whole bar that's under here will light up in a flame to let you know that it lit. So that was the kitchen appliances in the Cougar, and we'll move on to the entertainment section next. Okay, the entertainment section in the living room of the Cougar we will show here. As you can see, you have a hidden TV. It's underneath here, which usually will have a hidden switch. So if you look either the left hand or the right hand cabinets, they've known to go back and forth. Inside here is just a simple up and down rocker switch. And I raise that up and my TV will come up. And you want to lower that if you have this style before you travel. Simple up and down. Keeps keeps the area up here clean if you don't use the TV a lot. It gives you an option of not having a big ugly mount back there or something if you don't use the TV much. So from there, it's a simple Vizio smart TV. You can connect it to your Wi-Fi at the campground or your hotspot or anything like that that you may have. The radio is a standard Furrion. They have CD, DVD, Bluetooth, and auxiliary. The only thing's really different that's is you have zone 1, zone 2 for your speaker control. So zone 2 is the outside speakers, and then zone 1 is the inside speakers. And you can have them both on at once or whichever combination you want. So it just gives you an option. You have USB inputs and Bluetooth and everything else. So it's really easy to use. Below that, we have your fireplace. This is a 110 fireplace. So on the days or nights, this time of year, October, November, and we had some really nice weather here in southern Indiana. At night, you don't want to kick the furnace on and burn up all your LP. You can turn on the fireplace itself. It's got 5 buttons. The 3 lines of bacon here will turn on the temperature, and then up and down will control the temperature to whatever that turns it on, but that actually changes the temperature itself. You have lighting differences, and then you have a timer from an hour to 8 hours that you can have it shut off afterwards. And that runs off straight electric, so you don't have to burn up your gas or LP if you just want to warm this lower area. And after they run for a couple hours, they tend to heat up fairly well. So they're nice, and they can also be used in addition to the furnace if you didn't to help kind of regulate the temperature in here, so you're not running the furnace 24/7. That's all of the entertainment options in the living room of the Cougar.